Live. Okay, and here we are. We're live now, not just in Clubhouse. We're only at 3 minutes past. We are live now in Facebook and Twitter and Twitch and X and Instagram and on Clubhouse. And we haven't abandoned the Clubhouse. No, we haven't. I'm Mandy Jane, and I am founder, as you can see, of Accessibility Partners and Inclusion. I'm going to get my teeth in. And I'm going to slow down. And the reason I'm going to do that is because, well, apart from the fact that you can see, to be honest, all of my stuff behind me, I haven't even put a screen shroud on, so you can literally see what's occurring in my office today. I want to know what's occurring in your life today. So I founded Accessibility Partners because I'm disabled. And I founded it because Access to Work were taking 20 months to respond. And I got a job with a disabled students allowance provider, because that's what I am, amongst other things. I'm a SENDCO, a Special Educational Needs Coordinator, Disability Coordinator. And I came to Wales, got a job, and then because I use a wheelchair, as you can see, I'm moving around in my wheelchair today, I needed to apply for the reasonable adjustments that I need in order that I can get to work. Things like I needed support with taxis because I couldn't take my vehicle and park in the university that I was delivering. So I had to ask about taxis, but it took 20 months for them to respond. So I couldn't actually get those taxis for that job. And I had to go in my van anyway, park out on the double yellows, and then get somebody to come and stand on the back ramp in order that it dropped the tail lift properly, in order that I could get my chair into the van and get home again, and put my chair into the van before I went to work. So it led me to realise that Access to Work, as it never was still not fit for purpose. But it was worse than that. It wasn't just not fit for purpose, it was not fit for purpose, and it was unresponsive. So for 20 months, I managed independently, not very well, getting to the point where I was very, very anxious. Now, the thing is that this had happened before COVID. This had happened when I was in business before, and it was so difficult to circumnavigate Access to Work that we managed our own Access to Work staff members ourselves. And because we were predominantly disabled, all of my staff were predominantly disabled, we certainly didn't exclude to include. And in fact, I would say that probably I was compassionate towards the applicants with disabilities because I'm disabled too. Okay, so there's some element of the fact that I was more able to understand somebody who has disabilities experiences, and maybe that meant that we had a predominance of people with disabilities that applied to us, and that's probably why we ended up as a predominantly disabled run and led organisation. Now, that was an accident. This time it's no accident. What I realised was that government are going to make me a stakeholder. Now, if you do a thing called CIMA, which is the Chartered Institute of Management Accounts, then you'll understand that in CIMA training that we have to talk about being stakeholders and all of those things. And the government have made me a stakeholder. They've made me a stakeholder because when I run an organisation for disabled people, by disabled people that are designing services for everybody, then those disabled people that come and work with me, if I either have £100,000 turnover, and considering my Access to Work is over £66,000, so it's 66,000. That's everybody's Access to Work claim is £66,000 at the most. So somebody who's deaf and blind and can't walk would need all of the things: a personal mobility device, a sighted guide, somebody to hand sign for them, all of those taxes I'm talking about. And they would probably need to be self-employed because they wouldn't have full-time contracts. They would have a number of contracts if they were deaf and blind across a number of providers. They might give speeches, they may talk on stage, they may be a lived experience panel member. Up until now, they wanted lived experience panel members to do it for nothing, but now it's not acceptable. So you can see that to have a turnover of £100,000 isn't so difficult. You need me and another Access to Work person, and they're award in one organisation, and you have your turnover, which means that I'm a stakeholder. Because at the point I either have £100,000 turnover, which I would imagine in your business that will be the case, or I have 50 or more employees as people that work for me direct. Not that you can do that in Access to Work, because you can't actually employ somebody for your Access to Work award, because it can't be a permanent employment. It's not possible. It's not allowed. So I can only employ my core team that I can permanently pay a full-time or a permanently part-time wage to, and that's challenging. But given that I have a lot of partners, all of whom are self-employed, all of whom do work with us under that scheme, and of course we have more than one Access to Work recipient, and we know that because there's me and another, right? So that's two of us. So I am guaranteed to be a stakeholder by design, by the design of the fact that I have a business with one or more disabled person, and the minimum income guarantee and a turnover that can create that. You're pretty much guaranteed 100,000, aren't you? So I'm a stakeholder. Now at that point, I have a seat at the table because I've bought one. I've bought my seat at the table. So what's occurring is I've bought a seat at the table. And why? Well, because that table's mine. I designed it. I created it 25 years ago, and I asked the question, what's occurring then? I contacted Steve Broadbent and said, what's occurring then? He came and assessed me. He was the first assessor in the National Association of Disability Assessment Centres. And he was my assessor in Access to Work. DSA, Disabled Students Allowance. He was my assessor for my degree. And he came and he found out what I was entitled to. And then he fought for me through the local authority for everything that I needed. The thing is, he's passed on now. He's passed away. He began the national NNAC, national, I forget, something of assessment centres, there we are, NNAC, before DSA and before we went to Student Finance England, before any of that existed. Now, yesterday, I'm giving you this reason, I'm telling you this for a reason. What's occurring is that yesterday I had a clinical supervision meeting with another ADSHE member, and that's the Association of Disability Higher Education Professionals. And we have a peer-to-peer clinical supervision session where we supervise each other's practice and then report to ADSHE. During that meeting, he said, I've had a request from Student Finance England about giving ideas about the remake of DSA. And I said, can I have a copy of that? Well, they binned me, did the DSA at Christmas, and I got myself reinstated because of something that they said had happened that didn't happen. They were worried about it, so they checked out and found out I was fine. Well, I wouldn't have received this documentation or the knowledge that DSA is about to be brought back into all the universities if I hadn't have received this piece of investigation. So they are doing that consultation with DSA providers, DSA individuals and DSA recipients. I have received none of those consultations, not as a student, not as a provider, and not as a partner or as a practitioner or as a specialist. So I've received none of those, but he sent them to me, which was great. Morning, thank you. So he gave them to me. And so I reported back to the government last night about disabled students' allowance. So what's occurring is that the government are up to their shenanigans. What does that mean for us as disabled people? Well, it means massive amounts. It means that in the future, this table's ours because we made the table, and the table involves health, education, and work. I've asked to understand what the cross-parliamentary party for work, education and health and social care looks like, and who's on it, because I would like to be the special advisor for that cross-party parliamentary service user group and facilitators of people with disabilities. It's an industry. Now, the industry is about to be remade. It's about to be remade. It's about to be overhauled. And let me tell you now that the new industries, the new jobs, and I've been talking about this for the last 3 years, and it has been 3 years. I look back at my MI365 journal, and I've been journaling 3 years now. And in that journal, I talked about the future of work. In fact, it was the very first podcast that I did with a guest, somebody that was in Clubhouse that asked me to speak with them. I'm going to go and drag that out. A lady from South Africa, the future of workfulness. And what I said then is what I'm saying now. By 2030, we will have created 30% more jobs than exist now. There are 30% more titles going to exist in workfulness by 2030 than there is now. So we're making jobs up. Literally, we're making jobs up. Now, the exciting thing is that the jobs that we're making up aren't just the jobs that they're new jobs, but we're also not recreating, but redelivering the jobs that are really needed. For example, we have a national shortage of sighted guides. We have a national shortage of blind and visually impaired teachers. We have a national shortage of access to work coaches and experienced facilitators. We have a national shortage of specific learning difficulties tutors in higher education. We have this national shortage of these because DSA, Disabled Students Allowance, Access to Work, that's the Department for Works and Pensions, and the Department for Education, that's our schools and colleges, have designed it as such. I'm going to say that again. There's a national shortage of all of these disability practitioner roles. Why? Because the government have orchestrated it to be that way. They've done it because they wanted to ruin wages, they wanted to reduce opportunities, they wanted to take away employment, and they wanted to put everybody onto a 0 hours contract at the lowest possible rate in order that everybody would be in a bear garden and desperate for a job. And there'd be hundreds of these people, and they'd be telling us that there's a national shortage, and then they'd be applying. They've created the perfect storm, and they've created so that they can reduce costs, remove all opportunities for fairness and equitable practice, and all employment opportunities, all those securities of the employment status. So we are at that point, 25 years, and what's occurring is exactly what I said would occurring back in 2001. When it was about 1999, actually. It's a bit of a weird year, isn't it, to talk about. As we went into the noughties, I absolutely knew that we were heading where we are now. Now, it's taken 25 years, and maybe in 25 more years, I will be saying, and here we are again. But DSA is about to be taken back into the universities. They are literally sending out the consultation saying, it's not worked, this 25 years of putting it out there, so can we have it back now? Well, it never worked in the first place, and the reason that we sent it out into tender and to the third parties and into these corporate organisations that I'm talking about right now, I am one. I am a stakeholder in a corporate organisation. I am also a stakeholder in a charitable organisation, one of which our director's due is here now. Inclusion is the charitable arm of Accessibility Partners, and we need both. Why? Well, because we're better together, that's the first thing. But why do we need both? Because we have to create an army. What kind of army? Well, the army that we need to create are armies of disabled people that understand their rights and their responsibilities. And I am one such disabled person. We also need to allow those disabled people to have not just their rights and their responsibilities, but the awareness of what's happening around them and the reason for all of the happenings, because everything is orchestrated, everything is planned. You can't run a country without running a country. So let's not imagine that anything on the news isn't happening because it's been orchestrated, because it has. It's been completely orchestrated. And if you believe differently, then you're wrong. Come and see me. It's what I said to the government last night when I responded to their inquiries. It probably took me 2 hours, and I'll be honest, I had a clinical supervision session of 1.5 hours, 1.5 hours, and believe me, my partner in that, it's usually in a triad, there's 3 of us, but my partner in that last night is to the minute. So that was an hour and a half. I also had a global coffee meeting on a Sunday, which I had with Camilla, my partner from Dreamcast. That was yesterday for an hour and a half. And I also had some staff to manage and some challenges about their well-being. So yesterday was not an easy gig. But did that mean that I did not inquire as to what was occurring? No, it meant that I inquired even harder. Because what I find is that the government put consultations out at exactly the time that it's impossible for the very people that need to answer them to answer them. So for an example, consultations that I've been chasing for families with disabilities, children with disabilities, have often come out on August the 15th. Because, of course, everybody on August the 15th with children with disabilities have nothing to do, bang smack in the middle of the summer holidays, just when everybody's going away. It's targeted exactly. And last night, when I managed to get hold of this consultation, it was not because I'd received it by email. It was not because my organisation had received it. It was not because I was a previous provider. It was not because I was a practitioner. It was not because I was a facilitator or a clinical supervisor or a specialist in higher education that I received that consultation that I absolutely needed to send and be part of. At the point I'm at my midpoint review for my social work training, at the very point I am being scrutinised, that was released. And it was released because they are strategic. And I found it because I happened to go to a clinical supervision session that I happened to book with somebody who happened to reach out because we need that clinical supervision. Otherwise, we can't continue with ADSHE. And this gentleman is as dotting the I's and crossing the T's as me. We had that meeting and he shared that consultation and I responded to it last night. I responded to it last night because strike when the iron's hot. You know what you've got to do when you know you've got to do it. And that did mean that I went to bed later last night, and it will mean that I will be tired tonight, and it does mean that I have to look after myself. But that consultation has been 25 years in the coming, and I was not going to miss out on the opportunity to let them know what's occurring. Now, I'm in Wales, and what's occurring is, well, pretty much everything in Wales. What we're doing in Wales, we're going to be doing in England in 25, 15, 10, 5 in the future. We're going to be doing it in England. And the reason is because the universal approach in Wales is the only way at the moment that we have within our battalion of methods to deal with what's occurring. What's occurring is a disconnect. What's occurring is a raping of our systems, a positioning of disabled people until they are so desperate and in such a difficult position and they have no more hope. No more hope. I said to the government 25 years ago, listen, stop picking people up, giving them next to nothing and then throwing them into the gutter only for me to have to pick them up again, because it's harder when I pick them up again because they no longer trust. So every time you do this, every time you don't do their PIP, personal independence payment, right, every time you deny their access to work, every time you don't help them get to the hospital on time, all of those times, it just undermines their trust. And then by the time they come to me, because I'm a SENDCO, I'm a psychotherapist, I'm further training, I'm a trainee social worker. When people come to me that are disabled like me, they don't believe I can help them. They don't believe there's anything possible. They don't believe there's any money out there because they've asked. They don't believe there's any option to go to school because, well, like Christian, our other director of inclusion, he asked when he was 18 and they never helped him. He was in his 40s before he came to work for me, for us, for inclusion, for accessibility partners. We had to create a job. In fact, he wrote his own job description with me so that he could understand how difficult it was to get a job. So I have to talk to people because unless I do, the government are going to carry on with their shenanigans and they're not going to be telling people what's going on. And I'm not having it. I'm not having it. And what they're going to do is when all of us are so desperately worried that we have nothing and the price of living has gone beyond and those welfare benefits have been raped and scrimped and taken and removed and put back and devalued. And access to work's not fit for purpose. And DSA has been moved back to the university, so we've got another 5 years of nobody knows what's going on. Another 5 years before they work out what's going on. 10 years of reasonable delivery whilst they argue for the things that they need, and then 5 years of them changing it back round again and putting it out to tender, it seems. So in this mess in the middle, what they're going to do is they're going to put all of this in one bag and shake it up. Now, much as I can probably get each of you 3 desks, one from Access to Work as an employed person, one from Access to Work as a self-employed person, one from DSA as a disabled student. I could probably get you one from your employer as well if you're employed by somebody else as a reasonable adjustment. So I could probably get you 4 uppy-downy desks for one person. I can't often get a support worker that understands your needs, that'll turn up when they need to with a vehicle that you can drive or they can drive or you can choose to drive. Not easily. And I certainly can't coordinate the equipment between Access to Work and DSA and your care and support and your occupational therapist without somebody coordinating that mess in the middle. And there is no coordinator. And I keep saying this, and I've said it for the last 25 years, there's no coordinator coordinating this malarkey. It's the same as when you get a practitioner in the NHS that is a therapist. Their manager is their clinical supervisor. There's nobody orchestrating. We're missing a vital part. We're missing a vital component. But the problem with that is that we're missing a vital component and they've taken away the wage for that vital component. So there is nobody orchestrating this game. And more than that, all 3 games are not being played properly. Health and social care. I'm afraid that frontline social workers are being put there after less than 2 years training to rape care and support packages to make sure that people are not having care and support where they deem it's not necessary. So things like domestic support is being slashed. Nobody is allowed to clean or wash up or whatever under certain kind of criterias. So they are literally going in and taking anything that's not about wiping your bum. In education, we've got rid of non-medical helping. It's gone. It's gone. I said it would, and it has. The person that works with me has been no job. I've employed her because I knew these jobs were going. And DSA assessors have gone. They've all gone. They're going to 2 organisations. Not all of the national assessment centres that I alluded to. Those assessment centres have been closed that Steve opened. And the large organisation, Capita and StudyTech, are now the 2 organisations delivering that. That's one for the government and one for the third sector. And you would think, well, that sounds clean. But actually it leads to a monopoly. And that's the problem that we've got in inside education. When we move DSA back to education, they'll have a monopoly. And what does it look like? It looks like they get a certain figure back to that 66,000. It's not 66, but it's a figure. Back to a figure on somebody's head. So when they go to university, they'll have a figure on the head. And the university will get a sliding scale of how many disabled students they're holding, just like we have a sliding scale of how many disabled employees we hold, and whether that takes us over the £100,000 turnover. Because at that point, we contribute 20%. We're on a 20% stakeholder price. Here we are. This is the nitty gritty. What's occurring is they want 20%. They're not bothered whether they get it off VAT, with VAT, as well as VAT, on top of tax, as well as tax and VAT. They want the 20% of their stakeholder. They want me to pay 20% to be at the table. Then they want me to give 20% to somebody to be at the table. And then they want me, if I want services from the table, to pay 20% to somebody else. It's a 20% club. Now, I thought that 10% tithing was pretty sound for my life. I tithe 10% of my income. The reason? Because that's how energetic alchemy works. When you give without wanting to receive, then magic happens, and I'm living in that magic. So give away 10% of your income, but contribute 20% of my company turnover and 20% of every disabled person's £66,000 package. You work that out. It's £12,200, I believe, that I will be contributing to every single disabled person I employ. Well, I already employ 5. So 5 times 16, you work out what the government's managed to coin off me this year. And basically, they're going to get that £100,000 back. You know, the one that I meant to have the turnover. In my contribution, I would imagine. because of course we're growing. We have a team of 12 and I'm having to employ more of them on account of the fact that they can't afford their access to work equipment. They can't buy it for themselves. I'm ending up having to buy it and then claiming the money back, because who the hell has £6,000 in their bank to be able to buy the equipment they need to go to work in the first place, to earn that money that they can't earn at the moment because they haven't got the equipment. So what's occurring is that I've got this government's ticket. What's occurring is that I'm still chasing them. What's occurring is that I wrote to them last night and told them to come and see me. I put my telephone number and I explained the deal. And I told them this one-stop shop, this combination, is I know what they're doing. And I also know that they're trying to save shed loads of money by doing it. And I don't blame them. But it needs to be done humanely. And it needs to be done with love. And it needs to be done with compassion. And it needs to be done with the end in mind. And the end is that every disabled person that has the capacity to go and work for themselves or access some form of workfulness needs to, because it keeps us alive. The inflammation type 3 diabetes is so much on the increase that the very disabled people that are being created have been created by this government. So they don't want to talk to me about healthy eating and about low-fat options when they created sugar, and they're feeding all of our children it. Cortisol levels and high sugar in our blood is on the increase, to the point that people like me who died during COVID died because of lifestyle choices as well as their chronic conditions. Lifestyle choices sound like it's something that we're choosing. You know, the word choice. Well, it isn't. It isn't a choice. It isn't a choice because everything they've created has everything within it that's killing us. So who do they think they are? Well, we began with that a few weeks ago. I'll tell you what's occurring. This government are creating my disabled students, they're creating our disabled employees, and they're creating our health and social care recipients, and then they're telling them not to be that. Well, it doesn't work. You can't create something and then blame it for existing. Unless you're going to tell those people how not to be in that position. And that's what we're doing in inclusion. You know, I need all of those people who don't feel that they're ready for work or are too frightened to lift their head above the parapet to join together and get some human rights. And when they have some human rights, then they can start asking what's occurring. They can start learning about what's going on, and they can start joining together like Dew is, like James is, like Alexia already has. And I believe that somebody on this stage, I'm going to talk to him in a minute, to her in a minute, is going to be receiving some equipment today. I know Dew is about ready for his latest version of Access to Work, and I know James is, well, he's just about to rock it. In fact, I read about a rocket the other day, 3 years ago, the one that I drew myself in my journal. I drew a rocket, I wrote, buy a rocket, and then I wrote, get a rocket, and then fly to the moon. And 3 years later, that's where we are. We are flying to the moon. But we're flying there because I found out how to do things by inquiring after. My psychotherapy teacher said to me, MJ, the only thing that you need to continue to do is be professionally curious. Remain curious, inquire after, and just find out what's occurring. She wasn't Welsh, she was Irish, but now I'm in Wales. What's occurring is something that is said all of my life. It's all I ever hear at work. What's occurring? What's occurring? What's occurring? So I'm not Wenglish, but I will be. I'm in Wales and I am further training as a social worker. We're going to have a multidisciplinary team of health and social care, education and training. That is what's going to happen. And I said it 25 years ago and I'm going to say it again, again. And I said it to the government last night. You know what I said at the beginning. I said in 2000, I said, we're not quite 25 years, it's next year, next summer. I said, this stuff doesn't work on its own. It has to work together. But don't let that mean that you're going to take it all away and give us tuppence halfpenny, because it isn't the fact. That isn't the truth. That isn't going to be the case. However, I am aware what you're going to do, and I'm coming. Now, can I come and sit on your board? And they went, no, we haven't made it yet. Non-medical helping board. They never invited me. They've now closed it. They're talking about putting that non-medical helping back into the universities just at the time that they can't manage it. And when I said it's not fit for purpose and the universities no longer have it. So we're on a massive shake-up. They're putting it all in a bag and shaking it up, which is what my mum used to say when she said, what's occurring? I could put you in a bag, Mandy Jane, and shake you up. because I was often quite discombobulated, and the government are right now. I'm not as discombobulated as perhaps I was, because I know what's occurring. I'm not as worried about what they're doing, because I know now, 25 years ago, years ago, I wasn't strong enough to make a change. Now I am, because I haven't left university since. And I didn't leave university because I knew that they weren't telling me what was occurring. But now I'm in a position where I've said I would like to be the special advisor for that cross-parliamentary group for health, education and work. I think it's the right time, and I think the government knows it's the right time. And in Wales, we have the universal approach, and across the 4 nations, we need to apply it. So remember, you heard it here. They're going to combine them, put them in a bag and shake them up, and then we don't need 4 desks for each person. So that's what's occurring. And that's what's occurring in the UK. It's what's occurring globally. It's what's occurring in the International Federation of Social Workers, because I know the boss. It's what's happening globally. And it's what's happening right here in your life, because everything is connected. Everything is connected. You are connected to me. I am connected to you. We are connected to each other. There is no separation. And the idea that there's any competition is foolhardy. As a very good coach once said to me, the time of the go-getter is over. It's time for the go-giver. And that's definitely what Accessibility Partners and inclusion is all about. As you can see, the inclusion has a massive us in it. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's not even about them. It's about or us. It's about everybody. And the reason it's about everybody is because there is no disconnect. And the idea that there ever was really only to obfuscate, to cloud the agenda. They've been clouding my agenda for 25 years, but I've been watching the mists clear every time they fall over in their obfuscation. I see through the cloud and I see what they're up to behind the scenes. I see you, I hear you, and I know you, and I'm coming, is what I said to them last night. So I've asked the government to come and see me. It's about time too. And we are heading, what's occurring is we're heading into the first disabled entrepreneur. I'm so excited. What's occurring is on the 4th of July, on Independence Day, we have been forced to hand the first disabled entrepreneur's crown over in Sunderland at Disability Rise North, because the Disability Expo got moved from London. It got moved to the north. So we've been northerned. We've not been sent to London. We've not been sent. Oh, we've not been sent to Coventry. We've been sent to Sunderland. We've been sent to Sunderland on the 4th of July. And between that time, we have a live replay. That sounds a bit weird. We are pre-recording our offering, because our BASWA offering is going global. As we said, it's going global. The IFSS and the I don't know who there else. It's the BASW, British Association of Social Workers, and ADSHE. We've decided that the best thing to happen is for inclusion to go global. So we are pre-recording our training for our global BASWA conference, and we are popping that online, and it will be then played live during the conference, where we will be going to have live interactive questions afterwards in the room that it is being shown. So we get to go and see our own showing, and then I get to be questioned about it. And if you want to come along, you can. There are tickets for the BASWA conference, and it's at the Earth Centre in Edinburgh. So that's in June. So we've got we're in April. So in April we've got what's occurring. We're going to the government. In May I am finishing my placement. We are praying. I am training to be a social worker, and at the moment I'm working with all sorts of people, but particularly in the arenas of dementia dementia and stroke. And that's really important when it comes to inflammaging, when it comes to that problem we've got, which is that we're heading towards type 3 diabetes. There are more people with sugar insulin challenges. There are more people that are obese, that are dying even when they're thin because they're starving, because actually we can't absorb what we need to from our food. And I didn't have a clue. I never got taught that nutrition stuff. You know, the most we had as a kid was mince and potatoes. I came from Romanies and I came from gypsies, same thing, and I came from tramps and also spies, but mainly the gypsies and the tramps. And we only had mince and potato, like literally. If you had some carrot cubes in there, you were lucky. But mince and potato, mince and chips, shepherd's pie, you name it, all derivations of the same thing. Some dead animal that was very fatty with some potato and maybe some bread. We also got bread and I was allergic. So I knew nothing about these things. And now I've learned. Now I've learned, if you want a good book, go and read Metabolical. If you want to read another book, it's The Body Keeps the Score. Put those two together with sugar and what we're imbibing and the monosodium glutamate and the additions in your food. Go and read it. If you can't read it, don't eat it. If God made it, eat it. If man made it, don't bother. If you don't get that right, frankly, the rest of it of what's occurring is superfluous, because the response that I have on sugar is not me. It's a response from a product that's in my system and it makes my brain go wrong. That's just it. I didn't know my brain was wrong until actually I checked. And once I realised that taking away all of those products changed the way I thought and felt and acted and behaved and responded and reacted, I realised that actually what was occurring was I was being controlled. And I'm not up for that. So I'm going to control this game. I'm going to control it my way, and I'm going to be playing it my way, and I'm going to be playing it out loud and proud. And I'm going to be playing it with you guys, because we're still here and we're not going anywhere. So what's occurring is we are relentless. What's occurring is we're going nowhere. And what's occurring is I am schooling that government in the fact that I've been waiting 25 years for them to be honest with me. And they're still trying to go behind the bike sheds and talk about me and other me and talk about me without me being at the table. And I've now paid for a place at that table. So it's my table. It's our table, it's your table, and we have a right to sit there, and we have a right to turn up, and we have a right to be proud, and we have a right in Sunderland to crown our first disabled entrepreneur, and we have a right to embarrass this government about this 25 year of running round the table expecting me to play musical chairs. I'm going to sit at every seat at the table, and when I've finished, I'm going to declare the table pointless. And then we're going to get together and have a real conversation about how we help disabled people have a life that they deem is worth living, whether or not they have a learning disability. And 95% of us with a learning disability have never worked. So whether or not we have a learning disability, whether or not we're born with limbs or without, a friend of mine has half an arm. I'm going to say half an arm, no legs, half an arm. He needs to move through the world too. He needs to move through the world too. And he needs to be able to be workable. I have to see him tonight, actually, to try and help him try to put him through the Access to Work programme. And they're not going to like it. They're not going to like hearing that he needs a support worker and a wheelchair. What they say is that, well, to one of my clients, well, if he needs a wheelchair to go across the festival field, the support worker can push him. Well, I'm not being funny, but we have things to carry. They're doing a festival. I understand it's handy that the support worker can push him, but also there's stuff to carry and he can't do it. He hasn't got any arms. Well, not that one, but the other one has. But you can't choose arms or legs. And this person hasn't got any, so we can't do that anyway. It's not like Access to Work are going to be able to choose between his arms and legs. They're going to have to just put up with the fact that he hasn't got either. And that we do need a support worker. And we also need a personal mobility device. And if you think I don't have these ludicrous conversations with the Access to Work programme for the government, I do. Every damn day I have these ridiculous conversations. No, that support worker can't push him across the festival field. Why? Because he's carrying the stuff that he's going to sell. And he's in a wheelchair. Why? And he's making the stuff at home. Why? Because I just give up. Really, I just give up. Because shouldn't they be asking the person that's been doing this 25 years, shouldn't they be trusting that if I say that one of these people needs this for work, there's a reason I'm asking for it? I'm not asking for it because I fancy something. I don't know what they think I'm asking for it for. So what's occurring is that we've got to start having straight conversations with the government about straightforward things that actually work. And when we do that, we might actually get a government that runs us in a way that's effective. Listen, I am so grateful. Oh, Vincent, I'm so sorry. Oh my God. I just feel awful that he's gone and come and he's the one that's going to give us the pictures. Well, that's perfect, isn't it? Because we can then, I just looked at the chat, guys. Sorry. We can, syndicated. I love it. Get a hold of me anyway. There we go. That's incredible. Yay, Claire. It's good to see you all. Yeah, of course we can all make it. And Vincent's just come in to let us know that we're in the right place at the right time. His art is going to be worth a fortune. I'm going to buy it all, by the way. If anyone knows what the auction's going to comprise of, it's going to comprise of everybody voting and then me going, how much was it I was paying for it? Because I've got an eye for this stuff, I'm telling you. And Vincent's going to be worth a fortune. Not that that matters, because it's about what he produces, and he produces energy. Of course, he paints energy. An energy painter. I can't wait. I just can't wait. I'm so excited. Well, good morning and thank you for listening to me screaming into the void for 45 minutes. We've only got 3 of us on stage. If you want to come up, please do. And thank you, Claire. I agree. We do need to bring this stuff into light. I'm going to I'm going to say goodbye on the stream actually, and we're going to have this chat without us being live on social media. I'm going to say, au revoir, and I will see you all not in the room, not in Clubhouse, but I'm going to say au revoir to everybody on social media apart from Clubhouse. And I'm going to say, if you want to know more about what's going on and what's occurring tonight at 7 o'clock in Inclusion, I am bringing to the table the questions that I asked on Friday. I also asked them on Saturday and Sunday. I have a quiz for you. I've already produced it with 2 or 3 people. It's a pretty cracking quiz. It brings up some questions for people about what the hell this government's doing. I'm looking forward to it. I'm also going to be giving you some feeding about what's occurring with the housing market later on, because of course I've got my fingers in all of those pies, and really we need to start moving towards what we're going to do with disabled people, how we're going to house them, where we're going to get them to work, and how are they going to work together. I'm going to say goodbye on social media and see you all in Inclusion at 7 o'clock tonight. I'll see you all